What is a VPAT? VPAT stands for Voluntary Product Accessibility Template. The VPAT is a template used to document how accessible a product is as part of a procurement process. Once the VPAT is complete, it becomes an Accessibility Conformance Report, also called an ACR. The Accessibility Conformance Report is then used by buyers to make a preliminary assessment of a technology product's conformance based on the reported accessibility standards and guidelines. The Information Technology Industry Council, ITI, is the industry group that maintains the VPAT. As indicated by its title, a VPAT is voluntary attestation made available by vendors to purchasers. While a company has no legal mandate to create an ACR, purchasers under federal and many state laws are required to ask for an ACR. A vendor not wishing to complete an ACR will be required to provide an ACR attestation or choose not to respond to the solicitation. In response to user feedback, ITI created 4 different editions of the VPAT, enabling vendors to create streamlined accessibility conformance reports focused on the standards relevant to specific laws and organization requirements. These standards include Section 508, Amendment of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, versions 2.0, 2.1, the most commonly recognized accessibility guidelines in the United States, EN 301-549, the European Union's accessibility requirements suitable for public procurement of ICT products and services in Europe. The 4 available template editions are 508, based on Section 508 law and includes WCAG 2.0 plus individual Section 508 chapters. WCAG, for reporting conformance based on WCAG 2.0 or 2.1. EU, for reporting based on EN 301-549 requirements plus WCAG 2.0 or 2.1. INT, incorporate all 3 of the above standards. Which VPAT edition should I use? Your customer's requirements will drive the decision on which VPAT edition to use. When preparing a VPAT for your product, here are some points to consider. Is your primary market the U.S. federal government? The VPAT template initially began out of federal agencies' need to evaluate how digital content conforms to Section 508 requirements, so federal contracts often require the 508 edition for creating an ACR. It is interesting to note that the 508 edition is directly tied to the Section 508 Amendment of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. This piece of legislation currently mandates the use of WCAG 2.0 Level AA and identified chapters. Does your product include hardware or non-web software? If so, then the Section 508 template is for you. Only the 508 edition has specific chapters for hardware, software, and support documentation and services. How important is mobile to your customers? Market sectors such as higher education have a particular interest in mobile web and mobile app accessibility since students rely heavily on mobile devices. These customers will likely ask for the VPAT WCAG edition and request conformance reporting to the WCAG 2.1 Level AA guidelines. Do you sell internationally? Companies that sell internationally may prefer to use the INT edition because it includes all 3 main international standards in a single template. As you can see, selecting a VPAT edition can be a challenge. In response to this, many vendors are electing to fill out multiple versions, such as the 508 edition, WCAG edition, or just relevant sections of the International Edition. Whichever editions you use, be aware each comes with its own set of specific instructions. What does a VPAT look like? The VPAT document is provided as a Microsoft Word file that can be used as is or reproduced in other formats. The VPAT includes 2 major sections. The first section includes extensive instructions for completing the VPAT, including essential requirements, best practices, posting instructions, etc. The second section, which you will make available to buyers, is the Accessibility Conformance Report, ACR. The ACR is what is made available as documentation of a product's conformance to accessibility requirements. It might seem obvious, but when you create an ACR, make sure you make it accessible if you transform it into another format, such as Adobe PDF. How do customers use an ACR? One of the most common misconceptions is how a customer evaluates accessibility during the procurement process. An ACR and other accessibility attestations are used to facilitate conversations within the organization. These conversations center around risk and usage. In general, request for purchase, or RFP process, will follow a general pattern. Your ACR is reviewed by an in-house team member or outside consultant with expertise in technology and accessibility. If the ACR reports defects or the team discovers defects during the evaluation, the results are shared with the requester. If there are defects, the requester has the option of utilizing an exception process. The exception process generally includes a corrective action plan or similar vehicle that outlines how the requester or organization will handle defects. These exception processes usually have several options. For example, the requester can take ownership of the necessary remediation tasks. The exception process can be the basis for engaging the vendor who will make commitments to remediate the product, or the requester can ask for an exception or exemption to the accessibility policy. It is important to note that an ACR with defects is not an automatic disqualifier. Having an accurate ACR allows the organization to make an informed decision. What are some of the limitations of the VPAT? A VPAT can only attest to products. A VPAT is not appropriate for services, such as the creation of a website or soft deliverables, such as a study. A VPAT is only as credible as the person who completed it. Historically, VPATs were completed by salespeople or other non-technical staff. This led to highly inaccurate VPATs. The task was then moved to the development groups who were creating the product. This led to an issue where the teams who created the defects were not able to subsequently identify them. In short, a VPAT must be completed by someone who understands the WCAG and Section 508 requirement. Why is an accurate VPAT important? A product without a VPAT is excluded from U.S. federal government solicitations, many state solicitations, the majority of U.S. institutions of higher education, and private organizations that prioritize accessibility, both as part of product development and/or promote the hiring and inclusion of people with disabilities. Procuring accessible products for both product development and internal use is the best way for your customers to avoid litigation and promote an inclusive environment. And finally, an incomplete or inaccurate ACR can put you at contractual risk. Your customers rely on you to self-evaluate and report levels of accessibility compliance on your ACR. Because ACRs are provided as part of an official procurement contract, they represent your formal claim regarding the accessibility of your products and services. Increasingly, organizations are holding vendors responsible for accessibility claims made in their ACR. How do you complete the VPAT? Completing a VPAT generally starts with a product audit by experts familiar with accessibility concepts, guidelines, and testing methodologies. Once the degree of the product's accessibility is understood, the VPAT is completed by a person who understands the rules and guidelines associated with the individual template. If you do not have trained accessibility experts in-house, you may consider hiring a consultant to guide you through the VPAT process. How often do you update an ACR? There is no set timeline, but in general, you need to update the ACR every 12 to 16 months when significant features are released or if the user interface has undergone a substantial change. The VPAT was developed to provide a standard reporting format and make it easier for procurement departments to have conversations regarding the accessibility of your product. Not having an ACR, completed VPAT, will exclude you from many solicitations in both the public and private sectors. Having an ACR with noted defects does not disqualify you from consideration. An accurate ACR allows the purchaser to pursue a variety of actions, such as undergoing an exception process. An inaccurate or misleading ACR represents a significant contract risk. And finally, you should realize that the VPAT is one component of a robust internal accessibility program that will involve in-depth conversations with your third-party vendors, testing with assistive technology users, testing by accessibility experts, and regular reviews to make sure the information provided is up to date.